Welcome back, shop rats. Hey, it's a sunny Sunday here in mid-Michigan, and I'm on the road to pick up something for the Golden Mullet Project and to help out a buddy with an issue that he's having on a vehicle that begins, well, it's an F word, F-O-R-D. Probably not going to film any of that, but I did want to share with you what's going on with the Golden Mullet. So, well, let's watch the show intro. I'll see you in about 30 seconds. I'm Mike, and this is My Car's Shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
I've been doing a lot of mental cogitating on the Golden Mullet, and it takes me a long time and it hurts. And I'm not very good at it, but I have a plan for that car, and I have had for quite a while, but the details and well, there's just stuff. I've mentioned over in the community tab that I'm looking for a straight axle out of a pre-1970 Dodge two-wheel drive truck. And a couple of you have jumped up and said, hey, I've got one, but unfortunately you're in like Arizona and California and Idaho and places like that. And, well, quite frankly, the cost to ship or the cost of fuel would be about 100 times more than the axle's worth. But I appreciate it, and if I could get there and figure out how to get it from you and shake your hand and have a conversation and maybe turn some wrenches or melt some metal, I would be all over that. But with gas at $18.6 per gallon right now in a vehicle that at best gets 15 miles to the gallon, that's probably not in the budget right now. But I appreciate the thought and the sentiment, believe me, more than you know. But what I'm looking for those who don't know, is I would like a straight axle, the hubs, the brakes, the leaf springs, all basically just like bolted out of the car with the springs, and there you go, the whole straight axle assembly. I'm sad and upset with myself in some ways because I had one out of my 47 Ford. When I put the drop axle in there, I sold it. But at the end of the day, that one I had taken off the spindles and all that stuff anyway. So, and I'm not sure that putting a Ford product under a Dodge is the best option. So I've looked at the kits online, and I think it's Speedway maybe offers a kit, which is very intriguing. But maybe you kind of get in the direction where I'm going with this car. I don't know, but yeah, that's the direction I'm headed. So I'm gonna still leave it a little vague, but I think some of you are gonna be hitting what I'm pitching. My delicious bride has asked that the Golden Mullet not come home until that 2004 Mini Cooper S that was there, which belongs to a friend of mine's son. That car needed to be gone before we brought the Golden Mullet home. So we haven't gotten the car there yet, but the Cooper is gone finally. So it's off to be repaired. It had a blown head gasket. I went through and did a bunch of compression tests on it and diagnosed it. And I think it's just got a blown head gasket. It might have a cracked head. My buddy Mike has it over at his shop, and he's tearing into it, and it looks like it needs a water pump, and just waiting to get the word on how deep the problems are in the car. But anyway, that's not really relevant right now. But yeah, today I'm going to pick up a key element, a key piece, a key thing for the Golden Mullet Project, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's not the axle. I don't know if I said that or not because I have the attention span of a gnat. But I'm pretty excited about getting this thing home and identifying it and seeing what it is, and getting some specs and some deets and some information and stuff like that for the project. So we'll just leave it be a bit of a mystery right now, although probably knowing me with the thumbnail, you already know what it is. It's about a 30 mile trip over to my buddy Dave's, and so I'm heading there now, and I'm sure we'll have more to share along the way as I have thoughts and things like that. But yeah, so just stay tuned, and I'll be back before you know it. And for me, it'll be a while, but hopefully everything goes well with this Ford. It's got a timing issue. Runs good at idle up to about 1500, and then it really bogs out. I suspect maybe it has a stuck mechanical advance, or the timing marks are way off, or, well, it's a Ford. So God only knows what might be the issue. And just as a PSA, if you're driving on a state highway, the speed limit is 55, not 17.2. And if you're going to be making a right turn 3 miles down the road, you don't need to start slowing down and turning your blinker light on when you're only going 17.2 miles an hour. You might want to get out of the way because you're going to cause an accident. I'll return you now to your regularly scheduled program. Alrighty then. On our way back home with a great big load in the back of the truck. It's good. So I'm excited to share with you what I got, and I'm going to do a little bit of digging and some research, but yeah, it's a gamble, but you know, life's a gamble anyway. So 30 dirty miles back home, and then we'll find a shady spot to like do some digging on some numbers and see exactly what we've got. It's one of two things, and well, you know, we'll just see. So hang on, we'll be right back. Oh, yeah, and an update on the Ford. So strangest thing, we think it's got a bad, what's that Ford Spark box. We checked the coil, we checked the timing, carburetion's good, there's no exhaust restrictions, fuel supply's good, 35 degrees overall timing, but when you get it up to where it hits full advance, it starts breaking up, and then if you nail it, it just backfires through the exhaust and starts running terrible. I keep telling him the problem is it's a Ford. Curious to see what he ends up with, but that's what we determined. Like I said, we tried a different coil. I thought it was a coil breaking down. Could be a pickup coil in a distributor, but I don't know. We wonder if it's that Ford DuraSpark box or whatever it is on an 86 460. So anyway, just an update on that, and curious to see what the bottom line is. All right, we'll be back. All right, just like that, we're home, and here with the great prize in the back of the truck. So we will now have the big unveiling. So what we have here is a big block Chrysler that we're going to identify what it is. I got my suspicions. Looks like a pretty standard big block till you get up on this side. You can see it's a little different on the front. So I want to talk about that a little bit, what I suspect it is and why I'm thinking so. I'm going to be looking the numbers up on this real soon. When I first heard about this motor, I thought it was an industrial big block, but when I saw it, I was pretty sure it wasn't, or at least it wasn't for the typical industrial applications that I've seen. So I want to talk about that just briefly. The industrial motors had a different set of heads and a different water pump assembly. Now you notice this has no water pump at all, but industrial big blocks had the water passages were actually in the head, and they had more cooling in the head, and I think some of them even had an angle plug. But this one doesn't. This has the traditional bolt pattern for where the water pump and all that stuff would bolt on there, which leads me to believe that this is probably a marine engine, is my guess. It has a flat oil pan. That would be its second clue. If it's an industrial engine, it's not the typical industrial engines that I'm used to seeing because it doesn't have those different heads. But the good news with any of these motors is, whether it's marine or industrial, from everything I understand, the block is the same. Now, also good news on this one is the heads are definitely going to work in an automotive application, provided that they're bolt drilled properly, which I think they are. But I haven't dug that deeply into it yet. It does have mechanical rockers. That's intriguing. I measured the across the valley to see, like here, to see from here to there, to see whether this was a B engine or an RB. If I remember right, with the deck height on a B is shorter, the distance from the oil pan seal to the oil pan seal is about 13 inches on a B engine. This one measures 14, so it leads me to believe it is a RB. I didn't take time to identify this motor when we picked it up. I just went ahead and put it in the truck and brought it home. So let's, I'm gonna get the casting numbers off this thing. It's kind of down here and pretty dirty. So we got to do some cleaning there and see if we can see what that is. And if we can't identify it by those numbers there, then we'll take those block casting numbers and hopefully go into my little database that I have and identify what this engine is. So the first place we're looking is here, and it just says 4-25. So probably 25th date of April, whatever year it was made, but it doesn't have a year stamp that I'm seeing. It's got an H here. I'm sure that means something. While editing this video, the light bulb went on that the 4 probably means 1964, but I'm not sure what the 25 means. So I've got both sides of the block cleaned up, and I haven't even looked at the numbers yet, so let's take a peek at this one over here first. That number right there should tell us, if I can look that up in my database, should tell us what this is. Let's take a look at the other side and see what's there. There's nothing there that I see indicates what size motor this is directly. So that's just a casting number. And let's see what we got over here. Looks like the same number. So that's on both sides of the block. Okay, clean that up just a bit more, but we're going to have to get my database out, my paper sheets, and look this up. And let me just clarify that I am no expert on big blocks. I know what I know. I've had big blocks off and on for the last 40 years. But the older I get, the more I discover I don't know. And I think that's kind of what happens with age, is when you're young, you think you know everything. And when you're old, you realize you know nothing. The mechanical rockers are an interesting thing, for sure. Obviously, this has been sitting out in the rain for the last 72 years. So, but one thing I wanted to mention is I suspect it's a 413. Thought maybe it could be a 361, but when I realized it was definitely an RB and not a B, that kind of put that to rest. Tell me why it is that it can be perfectly calm out here, and as soon as I start recording, the wind kicks up. Hopefully not too bad here. What I'm using is this Guide to Mopar V8 Cylinder Head and Block Casting Numbers by Greg Acosta. It was written in 2018 from EngineLabs.com. It's a source. You know what? I'm not going to say it's gospel, but I think it's fairly accurate, and it'll help us hopefully identify what this is. So I'm going to dig into this here a minute and see what I find. Just looking through the numbers here, and this is a 2.2 series, and as I was going through the numbers, it reminded me of something. If you want to make Mopar guys' heads explode, talk about the 1958 350 cubic inch Mopar big block. It's a thing. I promise it is. 1 year only, 350 cubic inches. You'll see people melt down when you start talking about, hey, I was thinking about putting a 350 big block in my 1 year only. Rare motor, but it's a thing, and I'll show you right here. Right there. 1958, 1959, 350, 361, 383 BRB series. There it is here again, 1958, 350. It only came in 1 or 2 different model years. This is for head casting numbers, but it was a 350. And I remember on one of the Mopar forums one night, a guy was just poking the bear with this. And he and I have actually become Facebook friends over it, because I knew exactly what he was talking about. It's a real thing. Helpful, but not helpful. Helpful in that we know it's not a 440. According to my book number, 2205697 is a 1959 to 1965 413/426 RB Series big block. So the next question then becomes, how do we identify whether it is a 413 or a 426? And that may be only way is by measuring the bore and the stroke, but we're going to dig a little further and see if we can determine whether it's a 413 or a 426. And one way will probably be by those heads that are on it, because this motor's not molested as far as I know. And another way would be by marine application. Was there a 413 or 426? Was there a 426 marine application? So we did a little pencil rubbing. Becky came over and helped me identify the heads, and it was tough, because the part number is 240651, and if it's a 6, it's a BRB 1964 to 1967, 208 160 valves with a 73cc chamber, which is actually a good head. considering. And if it's a 518, unequivocally, it's a 1964 only 426B RB series big block heads with 208 valves, 188 valves, and 86 cc chambers. So from a chamber standpoint, these heads are better from a little better squeeze. Probably not going to use them anyway. I'm thinking I'm going to go with Edelbrock aluminum. But if I was looking for the unequivocal identifier that this was a 426, the heads would probably have done it if it was that 518. That last digit was really tough, and that's why we finally did a pencil rubbing on it. And so it identifies it as this guy says a 361, 383. Those are both B engines, but it's also a series of heads that was used on the BRB engines. So from 64 to 67. So there are people that know this stuff way better than me. I was hoping that would be the tiebreaker to say, yes, 100% this was a 426 Marine engine, but it doesn't. So I'm curious to know about the adjustable rockers, because I'm kind of leaning towards this being a 64 engine because of those heads, unless they were changed. And that's the only years those would have been on a 413, 426, because that's the casting number was stopped in 1965 on this motor. So I don't know if I mentioned it. I was going to. If you're into these big blocks, and again, I'm going by memory, so don't hold me on this. I believe the end date for production was, for the 413, was it 65 or 67? Some of you smarter guys know. It was in the late 60s for automotive. They were used much later than that in trucks, and even later than that in marine industrial. And in fact, from what I'm remembering, when they stopped production on the big block in 79, the 413 was still available, not for automotive applications, but it was definitely something that Chrysler was still manufacturing for industrial and marine applications. So if you don't agree with that, go search it on the web and prove me wrong. But this engine was available much longer than it was available in production for automotive use. So two bits of trivia that are probably totally wrong. So that's about as far as I can go by identifying it, but what I can see, we know the heads are big block heads with the smaller valves and the smaller combustion chambers. The only difference between the stroke on all RBs is the same, 375. The difference between the 413 and the 426 is literally a bore of 4.18 versus 4.25. So the only way I'm probably going to be able to totally identify this is to pop the heads off and measure the bore, and that's not much. So, I mean, we're looking at what? 18 to 25 is 70 thousandths difference. So it's a crapshoot. I'm not disappointed either way, but of course, if I'm going to build a car, I would love to put that 426 on the side. Now, the thing about marine engines, and I got to check this casting, if I remember right, some of them had extra thick cylinder walls. So if the cylinders are shot in this like they think they are probably going to be, then we'll be able to punch this out to 426 anyway, and who's going to know the difference, right? So we'll see. Big project for down the road. I'm going to be lucky if I can even get it apart. My guess is it's welded solider than a welded solid thing, and we'll have to break the pistons out of it to try to salvage it. I'm just hoping that nothing in the block is broken as far as cylinder walls. Well, even cylinder walls, you can get new cylinders put in. I remember years ago we had a... what was it, a 50-something Chrysler with a 328 in it maybe, and it had bad cylinders, and we just had the block re-sleeved. It was $100 a hole, probably about $10,000 a hole now. But this block is going to be worth saving, so these heads may be worth saving too, I don't know. But I was leaning towards going with aluminum metal block, and just a teaser hint, I do have a 671 blower in the shop that I've been saving for a rainy day project, so... I don't know, 413, 426 with a 671 blower on and a couple of big Holley carburetors. It might be fun. I don't know. I forgot how much I used to get geeked out by doing stuff like this. Back in the day, I used to go out and gather up old engines, and I had a bunch of old Hemis, the 331, 330, 354, and I spent hours just searching numbers and digging stuff up, and I haven't done that in 30 years, but this was kind of a fun little geek project for me, and even got Becky involved. She was kind of hoping it was a 426, so but it is what it is. At some point I will get this on a stand and we'll get it torn down. The shop is getting overrun with stuff, so I'm probably gonna squirrel this away in the back room for now. That needs to be everything. There's so much to do. It's crazy, but got to keep moving forward on the projects, right? All right, that's going to do it for this one. Tell me your thoughts down there on my new RB 413/426 engine with these small valve, small chamber heads, and what would you think would be cool to do with it? Because I don't know. We're on the Insta thing, we're on the Face thing, we're here on the You thing /My Car Shop. Subscribe, hit the bell, drop those comments, go over, join us on the community tab. All that stuff, you know what it is. So, and one more thing. Don't forget, this is for the Golden Mullet Project, so it's long term. But one more thing. Don't forget.